And it's recording. All right, here we go. Exercise 2D is the last exercise that we're doing this week. Remember, all of this is not due until the end of next week, so you get a full week, right? What is due by the end of this week?
2B.
2B minimum. Okay, so I'm giving you that time so that you have 2 weeks for 2B, 2 weeks for 2A. It's crazy amount of time. You literally could spend probably 10 minutes in this session, 10 minutes in the next session, another 5 minutes or even 10 minutes in the half session, and you'd be pretty much done. So it's like, but we have 40 minutes each time. 40 minutes session yesterday, 40 minutes today. That's 80 minutes. Plus 30-something minutes, which let's make it 15 minutes. You have about 100 minutes. And you only need 30 minutes to complete 2A or 2B. So to be able to say that you couldn't do that after 2 weeks, because times that by 2, that's 200 minutes to do 30 minutes. It's crazy that if you still can't do 2A, 2B, it's not me, it's not the subject, it's not the time, it is you. It is the fact that you don't want to put in and you're doing something else, whatever it is, that's killing your time. Okay? So I always give time and I give you enough space to catch up. So here we go. Let's fill in the points. So your first sheet, I've already printed out most of this, so you just have to fill in the points here. Starting at the very top, this whole topic now, we've done triangles yesterday. Okay, so triangles are 2C. Triangles is a 3-sided shape. So I'll just write 3 for 3. 3-sided triangle. And then quadrilaterals, quad means 4. We're now looking at 4-sided shapes. Okay, so 4. But then when we're talking collectively, 5-sided versus 6-sided, 7-sided, there has to be a name for all these, right? Anyone know the name starting with a P? Starts with P. Polygons, write it down. Polygon is the name for n number of sides. So whether you have 3 sides, 2-sided shape, well, minimum is 3-sided shape, 3-sided shape, 4-sided shape, 5-sided shape, all of those are called polygons. They have to be straight lines, not curves. Okay, so circle is not a polygon. So polygon is the topic that we're working under, and specifically 2C was triangles. And then 2D today we're doing quadrilaterals. Next exercise then we're going to look at all possibilities. So hexagon, pentagon, heptagon, all of those are polygons. Quadrilaterals we know is 4-sided shape. Now all of this here, you do need to know which one's which. Okay, so there's a number of shapes here. You've got this shape here. That is a kite. Very good. Write it in. This is called a kite. One of the key properties of a kite is it does not have any pairs of parallel lines. See, unlike a rectangle, so if you think about a rectangle does have 2 parallel lines on the top and bottom, and then 2 parallel lines on the left and right. So they have parallel lines. Kite is the only one that's a 4-sided shape that does not have any parallel lines at all. So this is not parallel with this, and this is not parallel with this either. Okay, so kite, that's one of the big hints. If you don't see any parallel lines crossing, it might be a kite. Another one as well, what's another property to tell it's a kite? Do you notice that the sides that are equal, these 2 sides are equal? How do I know? The dashes. Now, those 2 sides are not opposites of one another. They're just right next to each other. Whereas in a rectangle, usually, whatever's on the top is equal to the ones on the bottom. It's the opposite sides. So these 2 are the same, and then these 2 are the same. So opposite sides are usually equal. Kite, on the other hand, is not true. Kite is the ones that are both next to each other, which the technical name, if you didn't know, starting with A, is called adjacent. That's a proper name to say that 2 lines next to each other. Adjacent means next to. Okay, so I'm going to write that for those who don't know the technical name for it. Adjacent means next to. So these 2 sides in a kite is very special that the 2 sides next to each other or adjacent to each other are equal. Just like the 2 bottom ones, these 2 sides are next to each other, so they're adjacent. Those 2 sides are equal. So that's a kite. Let's have a look at another type of shape that you need to know, a trapezium. Now, a trapezium, the 2 there, they look slightly different, but they both have something similar. And the property that I want you to write down is they both have only 1 pair of parallel lines. So unlike a kite has 0 parallel lines. A trapezium, you know it's a trapezium when it only has 1 pair. 1 pair. Not like a rectangle. Rectangle has 2 pairs. A trapezium only has 1 pair. So you can see in the 2 diagrams I've drawn, this is the 2 lines. That's 1 pair of parallel lines. This is also 1 pair of parallel lines. When you have only 1 pair and it's 4 sides, then that's called a trapezium. And so usually it can be either one or the other. Okay, so you can have 2 sides that kind of angle out, or you can have a right angled trapezium. So you got, okay, so the one property I want you to know when you're looking for the shapes, identified by the number of pair of parallel lines. Zooming out to your right, this one looks like a rectangle, but it is not. Because yes, we have 2 pairs of parallel lines. So there's 2 pairs, the top and bottom, that's 1 pair. Left and right, that's the second pair. But this is not 90 degrees like a rectangle. So this is called what, starting with P? Yes, very good. A parallel, so we spell parallel and then Parallelogram. Yeah, that's right. Parallelogram. Okay, so write that in. Parallel and then ogram. It helps you to remember how to spell it. Parallelogram. That's called a parallelogram when it's like a rectangle, but it's not 90 degrees. So notice, I'm going to write here, note, not 90 degrees. When it is 90 degrees, well, this one we know. All 4, thank you, Matteo. Can we settle down? Thank you. 4 equal corners. Now we know that all the angles in a 4-sided shape must add up to what? So triangle, all the angles must add up to 180. Very good. And the reason why that happens is if we know a triangle has 180, well, in a 4-sided shape, you have actually 2 triangles. So hence 180 plus 180 should equal to 360. So we know that it's all meant to be 360. If it's 360 and it's got 4 equal corners, well, 360 divided by 4 gives you 90. That's why we know these are 90s. If it has to be equal corners. Okay, because 90 plus 90 plus 90 plus 90 gives you 360. So this is called, starting with R, rectangle. Very good. So a rectangle has 2 parallel pairs of parallel lines, but it also has 4 equal corners. But note, they don't have all equal sides. Top and bottom's equal, which is the opposite sides. And then the left and right are equal. So there's 2 pairs of equal sides. Whereas if I move on to the right-hand side, so on this side, yes, you can have 2 pairs of parallel lines. But what happens if it's not 90 degrees, so not 90, but all sides are equal? Okay, so put in the dashes in this diagram. In your own diagram, can you please put dashes there? Put the dashes in. And someone just mentioned it over here. Belinda, what is it called? Rhombus. Write this down. A rhombus is like a square, but tilted. Okay, so it's a parallelogram, except all sides are equal, and it's not equal to 90 degrees. Okay, so not 90 degree angle. There is one special property about rhombus that you might like to know for the extension questions if you do. The intersection of the diagonal lines will be 90 degrees in a rhombus. Okay? So notice here, I'm going to write here, intersection of the diagonal lines is 90 degrees. Xavier, I'm going to need you. I'm going to need you to settle down too. Okay, because you're both sitting next to each other again. And yesterday's lesson, I already warned you, if you can't sit next to each other, move. Yeah? All right, and your last one, hopefully we'll now know, if you have all sides the same, so put in the dashes, all sides the same, and it's 90 degrees as well, then yes, this is called a square. Very good. So all of these quadrilaterals, you must be able to name them. Okay, so the first step is to be able to name them because they have special properties. So you learnt in exercise 2B, let's remind ourselves again. What was exercise 2B again? The one that I'm saying that's due the end of this week. What was 2B about? Hands up. What did we do in 2B that is meant to be due this week? Angles, but specifically with 2A was angles, like acute, obtuse, reflex. Then what was 2B?
Like,
No, they all have diagrams.
different and same.
Yes, that one.
It was co-interior.
Yes, they only apply to something. They all have to have something. So the 4, you got co-interior, corresponding, alternate, vertically opposite. They are what properties? No, supplementary is part of it as well, but they are properties of something. Because that's key to why you need to know it for today's lesson. Starts with P.
Parallel.
Very good.
Parallel.
They need to be parallel. So the things you just said, listening. Thanks, team. What you learnt in 2B, the reason why it links to 2D is because we know parallel properties. And what you just described is, yes, same versus difference. The parallel lines there is important because when you're dealing with parallelograms, notice they have parallel lines. So when you're solving for these problems now, you're going to use some of them, use some of the properties that you learned from 2B to answer the questions in 2D. That's how they're linked. Okay, boys? If we're going to have to call you out, this is the 3rd time, I'm going to move you 3, yeah? Okay, so you got your properties, you got your naming. The reason why you need 2B and 2A is then you can then solve for angles when we're starting to do problems. So flip over on your page. Let's do some problems here. So you've got your 7 types of quadrilaterals with the properties that's drawn for you. Let's do the first problem. We already know that they all have to add up to 360 degrees. Reason being, you can always split a 4-sided shape into 2 triangles. So if you add both of them together, that's 180 plus 180, just twice 360. Now let's look at this shape. This shape, even though they don't have the symbols, you can kind of guess what shape this is just based on the angles there. It is a kite. And one of the key hints is that opposite angles are equal. So if you flip back and look at the diagram, you notice that the opposite side angles are equal. That's a hint. That's a kite. Okay, so 1, this is a kite. And that implies that these 2 sides are equal. That implies that these 2 sides are equal. Now, you've got a little corner box here. What does that corner box mean? Can I please have... Yes, Fitzroy. It is a square there, but in terms of angle, 90 degrees, because that little box means it is right angled. Okay, so we've got 90 degrees. Now, if you look at all the angles in this quadrilateral, this 4-sided shape, you've got 90, you've got 100 here, 100 here, and then you've got A. Now, we said that all the angles in the corners of a quadrilateral must add up to 360. So if this is 90, and this is 100, and this is also 100, plus the final one, this is a 4th angle, they all must add up to 360. So let's work it out. What's 90 plus 100 plus 100? 290. But 290 plus what will give you 360? 70. Very good. So therefore, A must be 70. Now, if you couldn't work that out, you could also do 360 take away 290, and you would have got 70 as well. Okay? So that was another way to do it. Instead of adding A, you could have done 360 take away 290. Let's look at the next shape. What type of shape is B? Can I please have Hamza? Do you know what this shape is? So A was a kite. What's B? Not a parallelogram. The reason why is because it has only one pair. Now, looking at your notes, the only one that has one pair is a trapezium. Very good. Write it down. Shh, 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 shh. Please don't speak while I'm speaking. So, first identifying, looking at the symbols. If you only see one pair of parallel lines, that's a hint. It is a trapezium. Next one. Now, we're going to solve the angles. There's A and B there that we don't know. Now, remember I said you're going to need exercise 2B to work this out. See how I highlighted...
Oh my god.
See how I highlighted the 2 parallel lines? Can you see that this line that cuts through the 2 parallel lines, that's your transversal line. What is 70 and A? These 2 angles, there's a special property to it. What is that property?
They're the same.
Not the same. They're co-interior. Remember, if they're on the same side but inside the parallel lines, these are co-interior. Now, if they're co-interior, what does that mean?
top one is double.
No. Co-interior means they have to add up to 180. So this is exercise 2b. Going back to 2b. A plus 70 must equal to... Can you give me a second? Thank you. Co-interior, so this is what I mean. You had to know your 2b in order to do 2d. These are your parallel properties. That is saying A and 70 are co-interior and they are supplementary. Supplementary means it has to add up to 180. Now, Matteo, you were saying?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Oh, supplementary. But what's A though? Something plus 70 equals 180. 100 and? Sorry, Matteo, I didn't hear you.
110.
110 is correct. 110 degrees. Next one. Now, there's two ways to solve. There's two ways to solve for B. You can again use co-interior if you notice that this is also a transversal line for the parallel lines. Or you could use what we've learned so far. You now know A is 110. You know this is 125, that's 70. And all the quadrilateral angles must add up to 360. You can solve for B that way as well. To me, I'd use co-interior because it's quicker. So what must B equal to then? Very good. So you can see here, B plus 125, it's co-interior. So they must equal to 180. Therefore, B is equal to, what's that, 55. Yes, that is correct. All right, that's your second one. So again, first identify the property. Once you know the shape, you can then look at your properties. Look for parallel lines. Exercise 2B is key. If you haven't done 2B, you better be working on 2B this session. Here we go. C. Let's look at question C. C, again, we're trying to find the angle A. We've got 62 on one corner, 97 on one corner. This box means 90. Means I can find this little angle over here. Boys, thank you. Try not to speak while I'm speaking. I know you're working on maths. That's great. But it interferes with my explanation. So, we can find this little angle here. How do we find this angle? What property am I going to use? Hands up if you know. What are you going to do? Yes, Matteo. I'll give you a hint. If you add them all, they have to equal to something.
360.
360. So write it down. So write down 90 plus 62 plus 97 plus whatever this angle is. I'm going to do a question mark. Has to equal to 360. Reason why is because this is a four-sided shape inside there. So if it's four-sided shape, it has to add to 360. So let's do it slowly because these numbers are a bit odd here. What's 90 plus 62? 150. Good. Got 152. Attila, what's 152 plus 97?
189. No, 249.
Yes, you're right. 249. Sorry, I'm doing arithmetic maths with you here, so we're just testing you. 249 plus what to equal 360 though? 100 and? Good. So that means this little corner has to be 111 degrees, just from our logic that if all the angles add up to 360, that has to be 111. But if I know this is 111, I can find A. Why? How do I find A? Supplementary, because it's a straight line angle there. Yeah, so if this is 111, what must A be? Very good. So 111 plus A must equal to 180 because it's supplementary. And here that is A is equal to 69 degrees. Very good. Last problem for today. And it looks scary, but it's got a lot of parallel lines, so it's meant to give you a lot of hints right now. You can find this angle right here very quickly by using one of the properties in exercise 2b. What is that angle there? Ooh, Matteo was fast. What was that? 74. Now, how did you know it was 74? Very good, because these two are co-interior. If you look at the two parallel lines, that is co-interior. So that must be 74. But if this is 74, then what must A be? 74 because? Vertically opposite. Very good. So all the properties of exercise 2B. So if you haven't done 2B, it's important. It helps you then to solve 2D problems with parallel lines. Yeah? I'm going to pause there. That's it for today's lesson. Work on 2B because it's due by the end of this week. If you're up to date, then you work on 2C or 2D.